and the right of the human being, and the things that are considered to be in the Quran oppression, and what we would consider, as we remember our definition in the beginning, that if justice is putting everything in its right place, and if injustice is putting everything or putting things in their wrong place, it all asks and boils down to the fundamental questions. What is right and what is wrong? What is the right place and what is the wrong place? What is the correct way to behave and what is the incorrect way to behave? What should we do and what should we not do? Those are the questions we have to come back and ask. Because if we're going to accuse Islam and its system and its laws of being unjust, then really to challenge it effectively, you have to challenge its fundamental premise. And vice versa. So, Islam is really telling us that the nature of the human being, the need and the fundamental need of the human being, is just as much spiritual as it is material. If we create a society where although people may seek for justice and strive, now I'm talking about Western society, which I believe essentially the rule of law, the desire for justice is very strong. It is, and it exists. And still probably you will feel in this society, maybe I think it is changing. I think it is changing. Unfortunately it is. But until today you probably still feel that if you go to court, you're going to be dealt with justly. People are not going to discriminate against you because you're like this or you're like that. And the fact is that it still amazes me. I remember a friend of mine phoned me up. It was last year actually. And George Bush's niece, I think, was in court for taking drugs and stuff, and she had to be sent to a rehabilitation center. And Dick Cheney was being pulled up before the courts because he was involved in some bribery and scandals and corruption. And this friend of mine was laughing at the other end of the phone about it, and I was saying, well, I don't know really why you're laughing, because I find it amazing. I mean, this is the second most important man and most powerful man probably in America, and he's been taken before the courts. I said, my brother, that's how we used to be once upon a time. In your land where you're calling me from, do they do that? If the son of the prince commits some crime, is he going to be put up before the courts? You bet he's not. You can be sure he's not. If the president's nephew, if he gets in trouble, is he going to be put in front of the court? You can be sure he's not. He's going to get away with it. I said, so I don't know why we're laughing, really. So I think that that's what we find. But my point is this, is that although the quest and the desire for justice is there, the system itself is the most unjust system. It is the most unjust system because it is based on a completely false premise. It is based on a completely false ideology. An ideology that denies essentially God's existence, that does not seek to rule people by the laws of God, but rather seeks to rule people by the laws and the whims and the opinions and the desires of human beings. And if there is a God, which I know without any doubt that there is, and if God has revealed knowledge from Himself that is perfect according to His absolute infallible knowledge, that He knows the human beings better than they know themselves, then who could be more astray and misguided than people who turn away from that knowledge and they follow their whims and their desires? So let us see therefore what is the nature of truth and falsehood, of right and wrong, of the means that we should judge from the verses of the Quran. This is why we find in, for example, Surah Al-Ma'idah, which is the 49th Surah, the 50th verse, and this He commands, meaning God commands, judge between them by what God has revealed. and follow not their vain desires. But beware of them, unless they beguile you away from any of that teaching which God has sent down to you. And if they turn away, be assured that for some of their crimes it is Allah's purpose to punish them, and truly most men are rebellious. Do they seek a judgment of the days of ignorance? But who, for a people whose faith is assured, can give better judgment than God? Again in Surah Al-Yunus, which is the 10th surah, and in the 35th to 36th ayah, the meaning of it, it says, say, it is Allah who gives guidance towards truth. Is then He who gives guidance to truth more worthy to be followed, or he who finds not guidance himself unless he is guided? What then is the matter with you? How do you judge? But most of them follow nothing but fancy. Most of them follow nothing but dhan. Dhan means speculation. Truly, speculation can be of no avail against truth. Verily, Allah is aware of all that they do. This establishes, and other verses, a very important premise. Islam teaches that in fact it is the sole prerogative and right of only one being to determine what is right and what is wrong, what is truly good and what is truly evil, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. And that is the creator of the heavens and the earth. That is the one who is the all-wise and the all-knowing and the all-seeing and the all-hearing, whose knowledge encompasses everything. And there is another aspect that is important. That because the laws of the human beings by their nature are fallible, the laws of the human beings by the nature of the human being, they are always changing. And they're not always changing according to knowledge. Our laws do not always change because we have now discovered some scientific information that gives us convincing evidence that this thing that was bad before, excuse me, alhamdulillah, was bad after. It's not always that. No, sometimes it's our desires, it's our passions, it's our whims, it's our fancies, it's our prejudice. How many laws are passed because of prejudice? Every time a conservative government comes in, they make laws that are beneficial for those people who vote for them and support them. And when a Labour, well, not there's any difference these days, right? But when a Labour party used to come in, they would pass some laws that were beneficial for the people who voted for them. And when the neo-Nazis come in, they'll pass, or if they come in, or if they do come in, or hopefully they don't, but they will pass laws that are going to be according to their political and ideological ideologies. That's the nature of human beings. So when the nobility were in charge, the laws were the ones that benefited them, etc., etc., etc. That's the nature of the human beings. Because human beings always need some things from others. God does not need anything. He doesn't need us to follow His laws. He doesn't need us to obey Him or to disobey Him. It's not going to make any difference to His kingdom, power and sovereignty whatsoever. God only gives us that information out of His mercy and kindness to us. That is His perfect knowledge that He gives to us. If you do that, it is good for you. And if you don't, then that's bad for you. The only one you are oppressing is your own self. But this is something really to think about. When the Muslim armies were attacking the Persians, the great Persian general at the time, a famous Persian general, his name was Rostam. He called the Muslims, he wanted to talk to one of the Muslims. So one of the Muslims came, his name was Rabia. This companion of the Prophet, this is after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, by the way. This companion of the Prophet, he came. Now, Rostam's tent, the carpet on which he and all the nobles had their thrones and their chairs. This was a carpet that was sewn with jewels. The thread was of gold, and this carpet had encrusted into it jewels. The same with the tent. How did Rabia come in? Walks in, oh, look at that. No. He comes with his spear, sticking his spear in the carpet, like that, coming up, right? He walks up and sits down right next to the general. So they get him and they throw him on the floor. So he stands up, he says, I thought you were intelligent people, but really I find you're very foolish. Because some of you, they lord it over the others. He said, I did not come here because I wanted to come here, you invited me. So the rostrum said, leave him. Leave him alone. So Rostrum said to this man, why are you fighting us? Why are you fighting us?